I'm going to pause here for a brief moment for you to review our forward-looking statement. It'll also be available in a detailed review if you'd like under Resources. My name is Travis Ramsey. I work with Jamf, helping our small and medium business customers with Jamf Now. I work in our business development team. Today, let's go over a little bit of our agenda. Let's talk about why supervision is important. We'll go over a couple of common business problems. Let's talk about how we can supervise devices and what tools you can use to help that. And then we'll talk about some benefits of supervising your devices and using a platform like Jamf Now. Then we'll go a little bit into a live demo and then recap all that we've talked about today. So first, let's talk about what supervision is. Supervision and device management are slightly different. Device management gives your end users access to the right apps, tools, data they might need to do their job. But when you think about supervision, it's a special mode for iOS management that gives you a deeper configuration or management control for any iOS device. And this is always recommended for any organizationally owned device. The ability to get that ownership right comes from the time of purchase or by using a tool called Apple Configurator 2.5. A little bit later, we'll go deeper into this. Since supervision lets the device know it's owned by your organization at its base level, this opens the door to give you a lot more tools that you otherwise wouldn't have access to unless this device is automatically assigned to your organization. This can either be enforced, like I said, by Apple Business Manager or through the tool Apple Configurator. But last but not least, it also lets Apple know that the device is organizational owned. And because Apple knows the device is organization owned, it allows you to dive deeper into the operating system and gives you more granular control of your devices. So let's talk about a couple of common business problems. When you're looking at a device being managed, you want to have the ability to configure some of the settings on your devices. You also want to be able to put restrictions in place that are going to help with security or any other type of end user restrictions you might need. Additionally, you want to talk about app distribution, making sure you're able to set up your users with the right tools for the job, while also being able to inventory your managed applications and have the ability to pull a license back and redistribute them as needed. This helps save with some overhead costs and ensures that you don't continue buying the same licenses over and over. Then the two most requested needs we hear are security of our devices and the encryption of our devices. We want to make sure that your devices are completely locked down, restricted, and encrypted from day one. We also want to help you keep track of inventory. And finally, how can you help if a device were to get into an activation lock? Activation lock is probably one of the biggest hurdles that we see these days. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into how you can help with activation lock. And then later we'll look at a live demo of how we can help unlock a device. But this process can get lengthy if you're not using supervision. So now let's talk about how to supervise a device. Like I mentioned earlier, we have two main ways that you're going to get a device into supervision. The first and most popular way is through Apple Business Manager. This allows for the device to be supervised from the moment it was purchased and is done automatically and wirelessly. You simply have to have a device enrolled automatic when you purchase your device from your authorized Apple reseller. They'll connect the device directly to your Apple Business Manager account, and then you're able to have the device configured, pre-staged, and ready to go for your end user the moment the device is turned on for the first time. The other way, as we mentioned, is Apple Configurator 2.5. This is a completely free application that Apple offers in the Mac App Store. This is the most common way that people to get devices supervised that are already out in circulation or devices you already have users on. This is a great tool when needed, but it does have a few extra steps. There's also a few challenges that come along with the process. The first thing you'll need to have is this device in hand and a Mac computer. So if you have employees with devices currently in the field, you'll need to get this back and be able to connect it to your Mac with a USB cable. The process does require you to completely restore the device back to factory settings so that the profile can correctly enroll your device into Apple Business Manager. And then once it's connected, you're unable to actually do a restore from backup on this device. The moment you do a backup on the device, it's actually going to restore to a previously unsupervised state. So you want to ensure when reset, it sets up as new. What we always suggest moving forward is as you refresh your devices, take advantage of the automatic enrollment option with Apple Business Manager. This helps free up a lot of time, makes your job easier, and is a much better experience for your end users. So what does being supervised mean? It's going to give you access to a number of restrictions that you wouldn't typically have, such as disabling installing apps, so completely removing the App Store from your devices. So the only way to add apps is through your Jamf Now admin portal. Setting up Wi-Fi networks on your devices, so you no longer have to give out those passwords to all of your devices every time. Removing apps like iMessages, news, podcasts, or anything that could be distracting for your end users. How about disabling changes to Bluetooth, restricting the ability to pair with an Apple Watch, preventing changes to any accounts on your devices, or even to be able to prevent changes to personal Hotspot, so you can help protect a little bit of that data being used on your devices and allow no one to tether that shouldn't be tethering to your devices. One of my personal favorites is going to be the feature of disabling erase all content and settings. By disabling erase all content and settings, it gives you, as the admin, the only power to completely erase that device. By doing this, it's going to ensure that anybody who intentionally or unintentionally tries to erase that device, they're not able to until you get that device back in your hands and you know it's time to actually wipe that device. So it really gives you the power to ensure your devices are being configured for your specific business needs. But let's talk about a couple of other benefits that come from having a supervised device. Like, how about lost mode? Lost mode is going to ensure that you have if a device is lost or stolen, we want to make sure you can get it back quickly, make sure that device is locked down to protect any company assets or information. We also want to be able to put this device in the lost mode and put a custom message on the screen, as well as maybe a phone number that somebody has access to get back in touch with you to try to get that device back in your hands. Additionally, this will also start to display a message at the bottom of the screen, asking anybody who looks at it to bring the device back to the admin so that they have access to that device, to unlock that device for them. The device is also then going to start showing the last known GPS location. It's going to send that back to your Jamf Now portal. As a Jamf Now admin, you're going to be able to go in and see exactly where that device was the last time it checked in. So you'll see an exact GPS location and the time and date when it was in that location. Once the device is located, you're able to quickly go in and turn lost mode off. This is going to allow the device to be back up and running when it's back in the right hands in just a few moments. How about activation lock bypass? We talked a little bit about activation lock bypass, but what we find with organizations is more common than not these days, people are allowing their end users to log in with their personal Apple ID. This gives them a more personalized experience when they're using their work device, but it's also when it's time to replace that device, or if an employee leaves your organization and they don't sign out of their Apple ID, they give you that device back and you don't end up with a bunch of extra bricks on your desk. So how do we get past it? There could be a very lengthy process to do it manual that requires providing proof of purchase, talking to an Apple team through their technical support, whether that's in-store or online, to prove that the device is actually organizational owned and not owned by the end user whose Apple ID was on that device. Once you do provide this proof of purchase, which is typically the original receipt, they'll unlock that device for you, and it can take up to a couple hours, a couple days, depending on your timelines. But with supervision, that gets much easier. A supervised device being managed by Jamf simply returned to you. When you get the device back, you can quickly go in and remotely erase that device through your Jamf Now admin panel, which will put that device into activation lock since you don't have the Apple ID password. But since the device already knows it's owned by your organization, there's no need to actually find a proof of purchase. You've already provided that with Apple Business Manager on your devices. You just simply pull up the activation lock bypass code from your Jamf instance. You simply then enter the code into the password field of the device in place of their password. This is unique to each device. So in your admin panel, there'll be a unique code for you to enter each time. And then this will allow you to completely restore that device and get it ready for your next user. So like I said, no more expensive bricks laying around on your desk. Next, let's take a little bit or look live at Jamf now and some of the instance that we can, how we can use some of these supervised functions from day to day. So as I pull up my screen here, we're going to see we're in a live instance of Jamf now. This is going to be exactly what the admin panel looks like. On the right side here, I can see all of my active live devices. Right away, I'm able to see which devices quickly are currently supervised by looking at these binoculars at the bottom here. And then I can also see that a few of my devices are not currently being supervised, meaning they were entered in through an open enrollment option. So I don't have the same keys to the kingdom. I only have some basic restrictions and access that I can push down to my devices. Couple of things you can do right out of the gate because of supervision. You can use Apple's automated device enrollment option. This means you can look at your Apple Business Manager account and pull up your devices that live in there currently. You can pre-stage your devices and get them ready to go before the device is ever even taken out of the shrink wrap, taken out of the box and turned on. So your end users will be able to quickly have this device ready to go from the moment it comes out of the box. But taking it a step further, as the admin, you're actually able to go in and set up what steps that they're going to see and what their user experience is going to be like when the device turns on. If you haven't turned on a device recently, you've got like 25 different steps and screens you have to go through anytime you turn on a new iPhone or iPad or iPod currently. As the admin, you can choose to completely skip these devices if you want to, or you can leave it as a normal user experience as if they walked into a store and purchased a new device, or any variation in between there. So if we wanted to, we could just simply skip all these steps. When they turn that device on, it's going to be just what language do you want to use, what country are you currently in to connect to the App Store, and then what Wi-Fi do you want to use to set up for the first time. And then we're up and running. Everything starts downloading automatically because you've pre-staged your devices already. If we look at a couple of things on the individual device level, though, a couple of places that supervision are going to be super helpful for us is to make sure we're actually able to update our operating systems. Sometimes our users just don't like to update things. Occasionally they do it intentionally, sometimes they don't. As the admin, you're able to come in and just quickly push that update directly to your end users. It's going to require them to enter the passcode for their device, and then it's going to download that update for you. Additionally, we talked a little bit about lost mode, but how does that actually happen? From the device itself, you can quickly come in and enable lost mode on a device. You're able to then create that custom message you want to put on the screen, put the phone number you'd like on there, and then like we mentioned earlier, it's going to actually start tracking the device and show you the last known GPS location that'll keep updating every time it checks into the network. How about activation lock we talked about a little bit ago? Being able to quickly come in on the device level and to show that activation lock bypass code, this is where you're going to get that code to enter into the password field. You simply drop this long string of characters in, the device is going to be able to wipe and completely be ready to be re-provisioned for your next user. If we look at a few different restrictions and pieces we can help our end user with as we build out our blueprint or our management profile. The first of these is going to be to not have to have the Wi-Fi networks, to not have the Wi-Fi network where you have to give out the password every single time. You can simply come in and add the Wi-Fi networks directly for your end users so they automatically join. You create the Wi-Fi network information, you can make or set it even if it's a hidden network. You can also set it up even if you're using a different security level on your Wi-Fi. And then restrictions on your devices. We've got a number of different things you can do as a supervised device that you might want to be able to either lock down or be able to restrict from your devices depending on your guys' business use. The first of them we mentioned earlier, installing apps. You want to completely lock down and disable your end users from installing any additional apps. This is going to completely remove the App Store from your end users' devices and make it so you as the admin are the only one who can push that device right down from the next one of these is going to be being able to disable deleting any apps, so you can stop anybody from intentionally or unintentionally deleting anything off your devices. You can see on a lot of these that these are going to say supervision required at the end of these. The vast majority of the real restrictions you want on your devices are going to require supervision, because you need that deeper level of control that you get with having your devices tied to your Apple Business Manager account with supervision. Being able to disable deleting system apps. Maybe you have some end users who just don't like having certain things in their phone. They'd rather use a different software, and you want to stop them from deleting things like news, podcast, camera. Again, that could be intentional or unintentional. And this is where you can also turn off a lot of those native apps that you might have on those devices automatically that you want to make sure you remove from your end users because it can be distracting. As we get a little bit deeper, maybe we want to restrict specific apps. Maybe we want to hide things like social media apps or something like Netflix or something that might be a more distraction on the job site that you want to ensure your end users don't have access to. All that can be done right through here. Or maybe we have a more specific business case that we want to do, and we want to use this option called only allow some apps. Only allow some apps is going to make it so you can tailor each device to only those apps you want to. So if you have 4 or 5 applications you need your end users to have, and you want to remove everything else from the device, you can do that right through here. By choosing to only allow some apps, it's going to wipe out all of the system apps that you're going to see traditionally on the device. The only exception to that is you're going to always have a settings app. And if it's an iPhone, you're always going to have a phone app, because at the end of the day, a phone is always going to be a phone. We get into security and restrictions. We've got a few different things through here that can be done to make sure you protect your end users and pretty much lock out anything you might need to, preventing access to USB drives or connecting to computers. Making sure that any of the information you guys have on your devices and you don't want your end users to remove from those devices is protected. It's going to help with security. We talked a little bit about my favorite feature, erase all content and settings. You can disable that right here. So quickly and easily, it just grays out that button on their device and they no longer have access to that. If you wanted to disable things like Apple Watch pairing, being able to disable Bluetooth, you can do that right through here. You want to hide some of the different options through here, or disable internet search results and Spotlight. You can do that on the device as well. When you get into some of the options like network and cellular, we might not want things to have the ability to airdrop or to airprint, or maybe we only want to connect to Wi-Fi networks that we absolutely trust. So Wi-Fi safe listing is going to make sure that the networks you set up as your trusted networks that are automatically joined are the only networks that you can actually connect to. So no longer can your users go in and just connect to a coffee shop or home networks as they choose. Maybe you want to prevent changes to personal hotspot. Like I said, you don't want any other devices tethering you to your devices and using any of your guys' organizational data. You can prevent that from happening here. A few different things we can lock down with iCloud. Like we mentioned earlier, sometimes we want to let our end users use their Apple IDs in their devices to give them the most personalized experience possible. But maybe we want to turn off things like iCloud backup, turn off iCloud keychain or document sync. So none of our business information has a chance of crossing over into their personal information. Additionally, maybe we want to just turn off a couple of things with Siri, like maybe forcing a profanity filter in Siri. We can do that through here. One we talked about a little bit ago is preventing changes to any accounts. Preventing changes to any accounts is going to make sure that your end users aren't able to add any additional emails, change the email accounts you've helped set up for them. Additionally, they won't be able to add or remove an Apple ID. So if you don't want them to have an Apple ID altogether, you can help restrict that option right here. How about if we don't want changes to wallpapers? Maybe as the company, we like to be able to set up wallpapers and make sure we have our business use image on the background of our lock screen and our home screen. But we want to stop our end users from going in and changing it to, pictures of the dog or pictures of the family. You can stop that through here. I personally use this because I chose to have a personal phone and a business phone that are identical. I don't know why I did it, but it happened. But I made sure that my work phone is actually set to a Jamf background as opposed to having my personal pictures in the background. Additionally, you want to set some information through lock screen. So maybe you want to just have plain text living at the bottom of your device. So you can say, hey, if lost, return to, or a property of kind of message, you can set that on here as well. All these things, though, are done through having supervision on your devices. It gives you, like I said, that more granular control. Additionally, if you want to take advantage of Jamf Now Plus, you can use custom profiles on your device. Maybe you've got a VPN you need to set up, or any Wi-Fi networks that might require a certificate. You can set those up through here, as well as pushing any kind of in-house or house-made applications to your devices. All right. Hopefully, taking a look at that live has been helpful and has shed a little more light onto how supervision can actually be helpful for you and what the user experience might look like for your end users. So now let's talk about a little bit of recap. Why do we want to supervise our devices? Supervision gives you all the power to ensure your devices and your end users are set up for success. It's also going to help ensure that you never end up with an unusable device is locked in an activation lock state. You can quickly and easily get your devices back in people's hands and get those assets being used. It can also help you secure and recover devices if anything were to happen. Not to mention, it also unlocks a world of restrictions to ensure that your devices are secured, protected, and the best tool to help your employees be as productive as possible. So simply stated, supervision is the best practice when managing your iOS devices. Thank you so much for listening today. If you have any feedback, you can complete a survey by filling out the widget below.